Chapter 39. The Split. Back on the road with a full tank of gas, they entered the state of Minnesota. The car was again very quiet, as many of the group had fallen asleep. Verona had just discovered her powers, and although she tried to respect the others' privacy, she was excited about her newly discovered gifts and couldn't help herself reading the group's thoughts. That was everyone's but Adam's. Verona tried and tried, but just couldn't see in Adam's head. Verona could, however, read Lake's mind, and she could feel that Lake was not doing well. Verona knew Lake thought, now that she had the power to heal, that she needed to get back to her parents before it was too late. If they passed away while the group was off fighting demons, or whatever they were about to do, she would never be able to forgive herself. Verona felt for the little girl. She thought for a long while. The power to heal would be very helpful when fighting a war, but Verona didn't know what to expect when they got back to Assur. But she knew for sure that Lake's parents needed her. Verona perhaps foolishly suggested, "Lake, you and Adam should go be with your parents." Lake, who had not yet fallen asleep, snapped her head toward Verona and realized that the older girl had been reading her thoughts. Lake said, "We can't leave you. We said we were going to help you defeat the Jinn. And, sir, our grandfather needs help too." Verona persisted. "Adam can just drop us off at Assur's car, the one that Lincoln and I were first driving to get from Illinois to Minnesota, and you can go help your parents. We'll be fine. I know you're worried, but it's okay. After you help them, then maybe you can come back." Although Adam desperately wanted to check on his parents and help them, if possible, he didn't want to leave the others to walk into danger on their own. Adam had been very brave on this journey, and he wanted to continue doing whatever he could to protect his new friends. Although he had this desire, the truth was he hadn't found his talents, and he didn't have any special powers. "How can I help?" he thought. So, resigned to reality, and with a look of shame written across his face, he agreed by simply nodding his head. Even though Verona could not read his thoughts, she could still tell that he felt terrible about agreeing to leave the group. So, Verona put her hand on his shoulder and said, "We'll be all right. Your parents need you." Adam's shoulders slumped, and he didn't say a word. 4 hours later, the group was exiting the highway where Verona and Lincoln had left Assur's bug at the St. Paul gas station. As they pulled into town, they began to notice some crazy things. It looked like the Twin City had lost its power, undoubtedly due to the bad weather. It was completely dark, other than the headlights from a half dozen or so cars and trucks cruising around haphazardly, and a few fires burning in the distance. When they pulled into the gas station, they saw the glass front of the building had been shattered, and the inside looked ransacked. It was eerily quiet, and there was a thick aura of danger in the heavy air. Adam slowly drove through the parking lot until they were within roughly 10 yards of Assur's car. Adam positioned the station wagon so that it was facing the bug with its headlights shining on the small car. They all started looking out of the windows of the station wagon in different directions. Finally, Verona said, "Okay, it looks like the coast is clear. Lincoln, get your backpack." Verona turned to Jack. "What are you going to do? Are you coming with us?" Jack only hesitated for a second. Then he nodded and grabbed his bag. Adam told Lake to stay put, and that he was going to get out and help them to their car. Feeling leery of the situation, as if each of them sensed that something was out there, just waiting for them in the darkness, The four slowly and quietly opened the doors of the station wagon and stepped out into a light night rain. As they started to walk the short distance to the car, they jumped at the sound of a loud roar of an engine. They all looked up to see the bright headlights of a large truck that seemed to come out of nowhere, speeding right towards them between their two vehicles. Jack, Verona, and Adam dove behind the station wagon to get out of the way, but Lincoln didn't, either because he didn't hear the engine due to the music he was listening to, or because he was simply frozen with fear. Lincoln eventually looked up, only to stare at the truck barreling towards him. The truck was about to run Lincoln down. Adam's mind was clear. He simply just reacted, and at the last second, he jumped in front of the speeding truck and pushed Lincoln out of the way while Verona screamed in horror. Adam had just enough time to partially brace for impact. There was a thunderous crash as the large truck struck the preteen child. The kids heard a sickening thud. As a result of the collision, the truck skidded to a stop. As the smoke cleared and the dust began to settle, Verona, Jack, Lincoln, and Lake were all screaming and crying. One of the truck's headlights had gone black, but the other was still shining straight ahead. They all desperately looked for their friend through the rain and smoke. Then, in the glow of the one remaining headlight, Verona spotted him. The truck had thrown Adam approximately 50 feet. He lay still on the hard parking lot pavement. Verona pointed and yelled, "There he is!" The kid searched in horror. Thinking quickly, Verona turned and ran to the station wagon and threw open the door, grabbing at Lake, hoping it was not too late for Lake to save her brother with her healing powers. As she was pulling the stunned little girl out of the car, Jack yelled, "Look!" prompting Verona to turn back around. He saw Adam slowly begin to move. Jack yelled out, "He's alive! Adam!" Verona stopped yanking on Lake's arm and started running towards Lincoln's savior. Adam rolled onto his side and leaned on his right arm. Then he managed to get up onto one knee just as Verona reached him. Although Adam was still looking down towards the pavement, he must have sensed her presence. Adam held out one hand, with his index finger extended upwards, signaling her to stop and to give him a minute. He then shook his head and checked himself out. Not seeing any big gashes or bones sticking out of his body, he tried to stand up. Verona stared in disbelief. She pantomimed helping him up, but never touched him. Not only was Adam unharmed from the assault from the giant vehicle, but now he was seething with rage. Adam stood up, put his head forward, and quickly walked with a purpose toward his assailants. Adam approached the truck, bent down, and grabbed hold of the vehicle's front bumper with both hands. Adam began to slowly lift the front end of the giant truck into the air. Moments later, with a flick of his wrists, Adam toppled it over onto its side. When he did this, the two inside crawled out through the shattered windshield. As they made their escape and ran off into the night, Lincoln would later swear that he saw one of the men begin to run on all fours. The others just stared at Adam. Although they now had some pretty cool powers, what Adam just did was like something straight out of the movies. Jack yelled, "Adam is a flippin' superhero!" Verona couldn't believe that her brother had been a split second away from an untimely and certain death. If Adam hadn't been there, Verona didn't know what would have happened. She ran to Adam and threw her arms around him, giving him the biggest hug he had ever gotten. She said, You risked your life to save Lincoln's." She pulled him down and gave him a kiss square on his lips. "You could have died. You should have died." Verona thanked him over and over again before realizing that she hadn't let go. She took a small step back and gave Adam a bright and beautiful smile that seemed to light up the darkness of the night. Adam still seemed a little stunned, maybe from the collision or maybe from the surprise kiss. Verona continued, "Now, go save your parents and come back to us. We're going to need someone like you and Lake." Before Adam could say a word, Verona grabbed Lincoln's hand, motioned to Jack, climbed into a Sir's car, and started the engine. Adam stood there for a moment, trying to take in what had just happened. He didn't know if he was more excited about the powers or Verona's reaction to them. He was confused with emotions, but he snapped out of it long enough to return to the station wagon. When he got in, Lake smacked him on the back of his head and shouted, "You scared the crap out of me!" Then she looked up at her brother with her huge eyes. Adam knew that Lake had been truly terrified. Lake grabbed Adam's hand tightly and said, "I love you, you stupid idiot." Adam smiled, put the car into drive, and followed the VW Bug out of the parking lot and back onto the highway. The two cars drove side by side, stopping now and then for gas. They stayed together all the way to where Verona, Jack, and Lincoln pulled off the side of the road. Adam followed. Soon, Adam saw Jack exit the passenger side of the Bug and come to his window. He gave Adam a piece of paper with Verona's address on it and some directions. Then Jack said, "We need to get off the highway here. Sir's place is another half-hour east. Good luck with your parents and hurry back if you can. I have a feeling we're going to need all the help we can get." Adam took the paper and nodded. He said, "Somehow, some way, I promise we will come back." Jack returned to his car, and soon they exited the highway just 20 minutes outside of Belvedere, Illinois. Adam and Lake waved as the others drove away. Then they continued towards Effingham and their parents.